A lion does not lose sleep over the opinions of sheep until the sheep realized the lion was always watching. Welcome, chosen one. Your presence alone unsettles those who doubted you. They never thought you'd rise. They never believed you'd prove them wrong. But now, their words, sharp as daggers when they were thrown at you, are dull, lifeless, and swallowed whole by their own regret. You were never meant to be understood by the weak. You were meant to be feared by them. Before we go further, if you're one of the rare ones who refuse to be defined by others, hit that like button and subscribe, because this is for you. The power of the chosen is not just in success. It's in the haunting reminder that no enemy can erase their past words. They laughed, mocked, and whispered behind your back, thinking you'd never hear. But silence is never weakness. It's the calm before a storm. And when the storm hits, it doesn't just shake the ground beneath them. It buries their arrogance in the rubble. They called you crazy for believing in yourself. They swore you'd never make it. Their words weren't just doubts. They were bets against your existence. But here's the reality. Those who bet against the unstoppable always end up bankrupt. They thought they were building walls around you, but they were really building their own cages. And now they have no choice but to watch you walk free while they sit in the very prison of their own making. Let's be clear, this isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving anything to them. It's about forcing them to live in a world where they can't escape the truth anymore. You didn't just rise. You became a monument to their failure. You are the reminder that no lie they ever spoke could alter the truth of who you are. And now they're eating their words. Not because they want to, but because they have no choice. Their silence is loud. Their backpedaling is obvious. Suddenly, the same voices that once told you it's impossible are now stammering, pretending they always supported you. They rewrite history in their heads, hoping no one remembers. But you do, and so does everyone else. That's the thing about underestimating a chosen one. It's a mistake that never fades. You are their regret in motion. Every step you take forward is a reminder of how wrong they were. Every win you claim makes their past words burn a little hotter. And the best part, you don't even need to say a word. Your existence is enough. So enjoy this moment, not for them, but for you. This isn't about seeking validation. It's about owning the power they tried to take from you. You were never small. You were never weak. They just hoped you'd believe you were. But you didn't. And that's why you won. Let them choke on their own words. Let them drown in their own disbelief. The chosen don't need permission to be great. We just are. And the world has no choice but to watch. And to you, the chosen one, this is your moment. Whether you've been walking this path alone for years, or just realized the fire inside you was never meant to be dimmed, your presence here is no accident. This is the space where the underestimated rise, where the doubted become undeniable. If you're ready to watch your enemies choke on their own words, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop number 77 in the comments. Because that number isn't just a number, it's a signal, a mark of those who refuse to be forgotten. And now, let's break this down step by step. Stay locked in, because if you are truly chosen, you'll feel it. You won't be able to look away. Let's get started. Number 1. They buried you, but they forgot you were a seed. The cruelest revenge isn't rage, it's rebirth. Nothing haunts your enemies more than the version of you they can no longer recognize. They thought they had you figured out. They labeled you, boxed you in, and threw their words like chains around your future. They believed you were finished. But what they never understood is this: chosen ones don't break. They transform. The very moment they dismissed you was the moment they sealed their own fate. Because while they stood there, convinced of their own superiority, you were evolving in silence. You didn't waste time throwing words back at them. You didn't beg for validation. Instead, you did something far worse in their eyes. You became unstoppable. And now they don't even know who they're looking at. The version of you they mocked is gone. You didn't just prove them wrong, you erased their entire understanding of you. That's what eats at them. That's what keeps them awake at night. They prepared for the old you, the one they thought was weak, the one they assumed would always be beneath them. But this version of you terrifies them. They can't admit it, but you see it in their eyes. The hesitation, the awkwardness, the fake smiles and forced congratulations. They don't know whether to act like they never doubted you or pretend they always believed in you. Either way, it doesn't matter, because their opinion, once treated like a weapon, has been reduced to an echo lost in the wind. Let's get one thing straight. You never needed their approval. Not then, not now, not ever. What you needed was exactly what they gave you: doubt, mockery, rejection. Because nothing forces the chosen to rise like being counted out. Nothing sharpens the blade like the pressure of being underestimated. And now you walk past them like a phantom of their greatest mistake. Their words, once sharp, now taste bitter in their own mouths. They wonder if you remember the things they said. Oh, you remember, but you don't need to remind them. Your presence is the reminder. Your success is the reminder. The life you've built, far beyond their reach, is the reminder. This isn't about proving them wrong anymore. This is about making them live in the reality they tried to deny. You don't have to gloat. You don't have to confront them. That would be too easy. Instead, you leave them behind, stuck, stagnant, and suffocating in the space they swore you'd never escape. What hurts them the most isn't just your evolution. It's the realization that they stayed the same. While you were growing, they were laughing. While you were building, they were gossiping. And now, the gap between you and them is too wide to cross. They will never admit it, but deep down they know they lost. And the cruelest part, you never had to destroy them. They did that to themselves. So let them choke on their own words. Let them rewrite history in their heads. Let them live with the knowledge that they never saw it coming. Because the greatest revenge was never rage. It was evolution. And you, chosen one, have already won. Number 2. They built a cage for you, but now they're trapped inside it. The cruelest fate is to watch the person you doubted thrive in the very space you swore they'd never survive. They spoke with such certainty, didn't they? They were so sure you would fail. With smug grins and whispered mockery, they crafted a future where you crumbled, where your dreams collapsed under the weight of your own naivete. They had it all planned out. You would try, you would fall, and they would sit back with arms crossed, ready to say, "I told you so." But life has a way of flipping the script. Now they're stuck in an endless nightmare, watching you thrive in the exact space they swore would break you. Every win you collect, every milestone you reach, every door you kick open is a direct contradiction to the story they tried to write for you. And here's the cruel twist. They aren't just wrong, they are forced to witness just how wrong they were. It's not just that you proved them wrong, it's the fact that you're standing taller than ever in a place they swore you'd never reach. It's the fact that their doubt, their laughter, their endless need to diminish you didn't just fail, it backfired. They thought they were the authors of your downfall. Instead, they became unwilling spectators of your success. Imagine them now, watching, listening, feeling the sting of their own arrogance. It's one thing to doubt someone and move on, but it's another to be forced to sit in the audience, replaying every insult, every prediction, every condescending remark, only to see the opposite unfold right before their eyes. They tried to write a tragedy, but you turned it into a masterpiece. The best part? You never fought them with words. You didn't waste time arguing. You didn't plead for their belief. You didn't shrink yourself to fit inside the small, miserable world they live in. No, you built. You showed up every day and did the work. While they wasted their breath doubting, you used yours to breathe life into something real. And now, they're choking on the dust of your progress. It's uncomfortable for them, isn't it? Every time they see you, hear about you, or even think of you, they are forced to revisit their own judgment. They aren't just eating their words, they are drowning in the bitterness of their own disbelief. And what can they do? Nothing, because you don't even have to say a word. No gloating, no petty victories, just relentless, undeniable success. They underestimated you. That was their mistake. But they also underestimated something far greater: the power of the chosen one to thrive, no matter the odds. And now, they have no choice but to watch. Number 3. They wanted to break you. Instead, they built you. The sharpest blades are forged in the hottest fires, and the words they meant to destroy you with, they only sharpened your edge. They thought their words had power. They thought their mockery, their doubt, their whispered insults would break you, that you'd crumble under the weight of their opinions, that you'd shrink yourself to fit inside the tiny world they tried to trap you in. But that's where they failed. You never needed their belief. You never needed their approval. In fact, their doubt became your fuel. Every insult, every condescending smirk, every "you'll never make it" was just another push forward. Not because you needed to prove them wrong, but because you were always going to prove yourself right. See, weak minds crave validation. They chase applause. They beg for recognition. But the chosen, we don't need a round of applause to keep going. We don't need permission to rise. You didn't let their words define you. You let them refine you. The moment they spoke against you, they unknowingly handed you a gift, a free source of endless motivation. They thought they were throwing stones, but all they did was lay the foundation beneath your feet. Every time they laughed at your ambition, they were handing you bricks. And while they wasted time tearing you down, you were busy building something unstoppable. And now, you've built something so solid, their opinions don't even matter anymore. That's the true victory. Not that you proved them wrong, but that their words lost all meaning. That they could stand in front of you today and apologize, and it wouldn't change a thing. That they could finally admit, "I was wrong," and you wouldn't even blink, because you've grown past the need for their recognition. You never played their game. You played your own. While they waited for you to break, you learned. You leveled up. You honed your craft, sharpened your skills, turned every doubt into fuel. They thought they were tearing you down, but all they did was give you more reason to keep going. And now they are forced to sit in the wreckage of their own words. Their insults, once so sharp, have dulled into silence. Their laughter has faded into regret. Because the hardest pill for them to swallow isn't just that they were wrong, it's that their words never had power over you to begin with. That's why it stings. Not because you rubbed it in their faces, not because you needed revenge, but because you thrived in spite of them. And the best part? You don't even care if they take it back. Because the truth is, their opinions became irrelevant the moment you realized they were never in control. Your success isn't a response to them. It's a reflection of who you've always been. And that's the kind of triumph they can never argue with. Number 4. They built the cage, but you were never meant to be contained. The biggest mistake they made wasn't underestimating you. It was believing they had the power to define you. They thought they had you cornered. They built walls, drew lines, and locked you inside a prison of their own expectations. They whispered limits over your life, as if their words held any real weight. To them, you were predictable, manageable, easy to control. But what they never realized is that you were never meant to fit inside their world. They assumed their boundaries were real, that the invisible chains they placed on you were unbreakable, that if they convinced you of your limitations long enough, you'd start believing in them too. But that's the difference between the chosen and the ordinary. They accept cages. You destroy them. You didn't just break free. You dismantled every false idea they had about you. Piece by piece, you tore down the illusion they tried to trap you in. And with every step forward, every rule broken, every expectation shattered, you didn't just escape. You proved the cage was never real to begin with. And now, they stand in the wreckage of their own arrogance. They don't understand how it happened. How did you slip through the cracks? How did you become something they never prepared for? While they were busy reinforcing their delusions, you were busy rewriting reality. You never asked for a bigger cage. You refused the cage altogether. And that's what terrifies them the most. Because now everyone else is watching. Watching you walk free. Watching you prove that their limits were never laws, just fragile constructs built on fear. And watching as others, who once believed in those same limits, begin to question everything. You didn't just escape. You redefined freedom. And the best part? You never even looked back. Number 5. They laughed. Now they watch in silence. First, they mock. Then, they copy. But by the time they realize your worth, it's already too late. They thought you were a joke. You were the punchline in their story. Every step you took, they laughed harder, convinced that your efforts were nothing more than wasted energy. They spoke your failure into existence. At least, they thought they did. But here's the thing about laughter. It fades. And when the person being mocked refuses to stop moving forward, that laughter turns into something else. Discomfort, confusion, regret. Because now, they don't laugh anymore. The moves they ridiculed, they study them now. The path they dismissed, they wish they had taken it. The blueprint they mocked, it's now the model others follow. And that's the sting they can't escape. You were right. You were always right. It was never about being lucky. It was never about being foolish. It was about refusing to quit, refusing to break, refusing to let their small minds define your reality. They called you delusional for believing in yourself. But what's more delusional? Believing in yourself, or thinking your doubt could stop a chosen one. You didn't fight them with words. You didn't beg for their approval. You simply worked, day by day, step by step. And now, you've built something far greater than their laughter could ever reach. This isn't just about proving them wrong anymore. This is about legacy. The same people who once mocked you now whisper your name with a different tone. Some with respect, some with envy, some with resentment. But none of them can deny the truth. You've built something that will outlast their opinions. You are no longer a name they laugh at. You are a name they cannot ignore. And whether they choose to respect you, envy you, or silently pretend they never doubted you, it makes no difference. Because their laughter, it holds no weight here anymore. You've gone from the person they dismissed to the person they can't stop watching, not because you sought revenge, but because you refused to quit. And now their words, once so loud, so certain, are nothing but echoes lost in the wind. Number 6. Drowning in their own doubts, trapped by their own words. The loudest voices of doubt are often the weakest hearts speaking to themselves. When they spoke against you, it was never really about you. Every insult, every dismissal, every word meant to break you. Those weren't truths, they were confessions. They were screaming their own insecurities, wrapping their fears in sentences, and throwing them in your direction. They saw something in you that terrified them. Maybe it was your ambition. Maybe it was the way you refused to settle. Maybe it was the fact that you dared to try what they never had the courage to. Whatever it was, it shook them to their core. And instead of facing it, they projected it onto you. They told you, "You'll never make it." But what they really meant was, "I never made it." They sneered, "You're not good enough." But what they were really saying was, "I never believed I was." They laughed. Why even try? But their laughter was just a mask for the one truth they could never admit. I was too afraid to try. But now, everything has changed. Your success didn't just prove them wrong, it forced them into an uncomfortable reckoning. Every milestone you reach, every step forward you take, every ounce of progress you make becomes a mirror they can't escape. And the reflection staring back at them, it doesn't show your failures. It only highlights their own. They thought their words would build walls around you. Instead, those walls have trapped them inside their own limitations. Now, they're stuck in an echo chamber of their own doubts. They hear their old words bouncing back at them, but now they sound different. You'll never make it. You're not good enough. Why even try? Before, those words felt powerful. Now, they feel like a curse they placed on themselves, not on you. Because watching you succeed proves one thing beyond all doubt. It was never about what couldn't be done. It was about what they couldn't imagine doing themselves. And that's the part that haunts them. The same energy they once used to tear you down now ricochets back at them. It forces them to question why they ever doubted you in the first place. But here's the difference between you and them. You've moved on. They're stuck replaying the past. Their words may have echoed for a moment, but your persistence drowned them out. Now, the only thing left ringing in their ears is the sound of their own limitations, exposed by your undeniable growth. And that's the kind of silence that never fades. Number 7. They tried to write your story, but you burned their script. The greatest revenge isn't rewriting their version of you, it's making it irrelevant. They thought they had you figured out. They assumed they could predict your failure like clockwork. In their minds, you were the cautionary tale, the one who would try and stumble, the proof that they were right to doubt. Every dismissive smirk, every whispered insult, every time they spoke of you like a lost cause, it was a line in the script they were writing. And they were so sure you'd follow their story to the bitter end. But what they never realized, you were never a character in their story. You were the author of your own. And that's why their predictions never mattered. You didn't waste time fighting their version of you. You didn't argue. You didn't beg for a rewrite. You simply picked up your own pen and wrote something so powerful, so undeniable, that their flimsy little script turned to dust. While they sat back, convinced they knew how your story would end, you were out there living a different one. You weren't just surviving, you were evolving, growing, becoming something they never saw coming. And now? Their version of your story is Their narrative is nothing more than an outdated, forgotten draft. The downfall they once predicted has been replaced with a masterpiece of resilience and success. The irony: they're forced to read every page. It haunts them, doesn't it? To know that the story they tried to write for you isn't the one the world is reading. But here's the best part. Your story doesn't just silence them. It does something even more powerful. It inspires others. Because in the end, no one, no critic, no doubter, no enemy has the right to decide your ending. That power has always belonged to you. And now, they're left with nothing but the ashes of the script they thought you'd follow. Number 8. Your silence screams louder than their noise. They thought your silence was a weakness, but little did they know it was the calm before the storm. They mocked your silence, didn't they? Every time you chose not to respond, every time you held your tongue while they screamed their doubts at you, they assumed it meant you had nothing to say. They took your quiet moments as a sign of fear or submission, as if you were waiting for their approval or hoping they'd change their minds. They couldn't have been more wrong. You see, the truly dangerous ones don't need to shout to be heard. They don't need to broadcast their worth. They don't need to justify their existence to the world. They understand the power of presence, the unmatched strength of action over words. And you mastered that art before they even realized it was a battle. While they tried to drown you out with their noise, you were busy making your silence louder than their loudest rants. They never understood that silence isn't weakness. It's strength, it's focus, it's power that doesn't need to be explained, only demonstrated. And that's exactly what you did. They thought they had the upper hand when they were yelling, when they were insulting, when they were throwing everything they had at you. But what they failed to grasp was that every insult, every derogatory word they aimed at you was only adding fuel to your inner fire. Your silence wasn't a retreat. It was a strategy they would never understand until it was too late. You didn't need to defend yourself. You didn't need to explain your worth. You didn't need to prove them wrong. You just needed to be. And in the quiet of your existence, in the solitude of your journey, you built something they could never tear down. They were too busy making noise to notice you were creating something far more powerful than any of their empty words could ever be. The truth is, they didn't know what to do with your silence. They expected you to crumble under their ridicule. They thought you'd break down and beg for validation, that you'd cry for their acceptance. But you didn't. You stood tall, unshaken, and let their noise bounce off you like water off a stone. They couldn't break you because they couldn't even reach you. And every time they tried to get a reaction out of you, it only made them look weaker. They threw insults, they spread rumors, they did everything they could to make you react, to make you care. But you didn't. You were beyond their reach, beyond their influence. And that silence, your silence, screamed louder than any of their words ever could. Here's the thing they'll never understand. Noise is nothing more than a distraction. It's a cry for attention, a desperate attempt to control the narrative. But silence is power. It's the calm before the storm, the deep breath before the avalanche of action. When you choose not to respond, when you refuse to engage with their negativity, you show the world that you're not affected by their weakness. You show them that their words are insignificant. And more importantly, you show them that you don't need their validation to keep moving forward. While they were busy filling the air with empty chatter, you were building your future. Every moment you spent in silence, every second you spent ignoring their mockery, you were sharpening your skills, honing your craft, and positioning yourself for greatness. The world doesn't pay attention to the noise. It pays attention to results. And those results, they speak for themselves. They thought they could destroy you with their words. They thought they could bury you with their doubts and criticisms. But all they did was dig your foundation deeper, and with every passing day, that silence grew louder, more powerful. The truth is, they were the ones shouting because they were afraid. Afraid that they couldn't do what you were doing. Afraid that they couldn't rise like you were rising. And deep down, they feared you. Their noise was nothing more than a defense mechanism, a desperate attempt to drown out the voice of their own insecurities. Because every time you ignored them, every time you walked away from their toxic energy, you were forcing them to face their own demons. And that's what scared them. It wasn't you. It was the fact that you were unfazed by them, unaffected by their noise. And now they have no choice but to watch in silence. They may have been the loudest voices in the room before, but now their voices are nothing more than echoes bouncing off the walls of their own ignorance. They have no choice but to watch as you rise, watch as you surpass them, watch as your silence transforms into success. Your calmness becomes their chaos. Your quiet determination is the hurricane that tears through their arrogance. They may have thought they were smarter. They may have thought they knew better. But they missed the point entirely. You weren't playing their game. You weren't interested in their opinions or their judgments. You were focused on something greater. You were focused on your vision, on your purpose, on your destiny. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. Now, as you rise, they are left behind in their own noise, lost in the hollow sound of their own self-doubt. They spent so much time talking, so much time filling the air with useless words, that they didn't notice you were quietly surpassing them. And now, it's too late. Their words don't matter anymore. Their noise is nothing but background static to the symphony of your success. They wanted to destroy you with their words, but all they did was make you stronger. They wanted to break you with their ridicule, their mockery, their doubts. But all they did was forge you into something unstoppable. And now, they have no choice but to sit back and watch as you leave them in your wake. So let them keep making noise. Let them shout and scream. Let them think they're still in control, because at the end of the day, it's your silence that speaks louder than anything they could ever say. Your success is your answer, your growth is your response, and your rise, it's the scream they can never escape. And the most beautiful part of it all, you didn't even need to say a word. Number 9, when their facts become fiction. The truth doesn't need to be defended, it just needs to be lived. They told you what could and couldn't be done. They spoke in the language of certainty, their voices thick with conviction, as if their opinions were carved in stone. They came at you with their so-called facts, their expert analyses, their definitive judgments about what your future would hold. And all of it, every single word they spoke, was nothing more than fiction dressed up as truth. They thought they knew your limits. They believed they had cracked the code of who you were and what you were capable of. They said you couldn't. They said you wouldn't. And for a while they believed their own version of reality, spinning a web of lies that they hoped would trap you in their world of limitations. But here's the truth they failed to grasp. Their facts were nothing but fiction. Their certainty, a fragile illusion built on their own fear and self-doubt. And your rise? That's the story they never saw coming. Let's be clear, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who believes their own narrative, especially when that narrative is rooted in ignorance. You see, their facts were based on what they had seen, not what was possible. They spoke from the confines of their limited understanding, projecting their own fears and insecurities onto you, convincing themselves that the future they envisioned was the only one that could exist. They told you there was no way forward. They told you there was no path to success, no room for growth. And they couldn't have been more wrong. Here's the kicker. Those facts were never facts at all. They were assumptions. Assumptions made by people who had never walked your path, never felt your fire, never experienced the force of your determination. They couldn't see your vision because they were too busy projecting their own limitations onto you. They couldn't fathom your potential because they had never dared to believe in anything greater than what they had already seen and experienced. And now? Now, they're stuck with the consequences of their own ignorance. They tried to shape your story with their so-called facts. They told you who you were, what you could do, and what your future would look like. They tried to box you in with their narrow perspective, believing they had the right to dictate the course of your life. They never stopped to consider that maybe, just maybe, their facts weren't facts at all. They were the limits of their own understanding projected onto you. And now they have to live with the reality that they were wrong. And here's the most delicious irony. Their facts were never yours to begin with. Their truths were built on assumptions, not on reality. They told you what you couldn't do, but never asked if you even cared about their opinions. They gave you their facts, but they never gave you credit for the fact that you weren't bound by their version of reality. You were carving out your own future, one that had nothing to do with their fictional narratives. What they didn't know, what they could never have known, is that the chosen one is never defined by the limitations of others. You didn't need their approval. You didn't need their validation. You didn't need their facts to build your reality. You needed something far more powerful: belief in yourself, resilience, and the relentless drive to prove that their fiction could never hold you back. They told you that you'd never make it, that you'd never be good enough, that your dreams were too big, too impossible. They tried to paint a picture of your future, one where you were small, insignificant, and incapable of achieving anything substantial. But they were wrong. You didn't just defy their facts, you shattered them. You didn't just rise above their doubts, you tore apart the very foundation of their assumptions. And now, as you stand here, a living testament to everything they got wrong, it's time to watch as their facts fall apart in front of their eyes. Because the truth doesn't need to be defended. It just needs to be lived. And as you continue to rise, as you continue to defy their expectations and prove them wrong, your life is the proof that their so-called facts were never more than fiction. Here's the real power in all of this. While they were busy creating their own narrative about who you were and what you could achieve, you were busy creating your own narrative. You were writing a story that didn't need their input. You were crafting a future that didn't require their permission. And now they are forced to watch as the story they tried to write for you fades into irrelevance. They tried to write a tragic ending for you. They tried to predict your downfall, your failure, your defeat. But instead, you wrote a story of triumph. You wrote a story of perseverance, resilience, and strength. And the best part, you wrote that story without them. You didn't need them to validate your journey, to approve of your vision, or to endorse your success. You built that reality on your own, step by step, with every decision, every action, every moment of unwavering determination. And now, as they sit in the ruins of their own facts, they have no choice but to watch. They have no choice but to witness the very thing they thought was impossible: your success, your growth, your unrelenting rise. They'll never be able to deny it. They'll never be able to rewrite history. And deep down, they know it. They spent so much time crafting a narrative about you, shaping a version of your life that suited their worldview, that they didn't see the truth coming. The truth that you were never theirs to define. The truth that you were always capable of more than they ever believed. The truth that the only limits you had were the ones you imposed on yourself, not the ones they tried to place on you. And now, the facts that once seemed so solid, so undeniable, are crumbling. The assumptions they made are nothing more than dust in the wind. The lies they told themselves about you have been exposed for what they really were: fear, jealousy, and ignorance. And as their fiction unravels, they're left with nothing but the uncomfortable truth. You were always going to succeed. You were always going to prove them wrong. You were always going to rise above their expectations, no matter how much they tried to hold you down. So let them live in their fiction. Let them cling to the narrative they tried to force on you. Let them believe in the facts that no longer hold any weight. Because you know the truth, and you've already proven it. Your success is the only fact that matters, and every step you take forward is a reminder that their fiction is nothing but a fleeting moment of doubt, soon to be forgotten as you continue to build the life they never believed you could. Number 10. The sweet irony of their own words turning against them. When they tried to bury you, they didn't realize they were planting the seeds of their own regret. There is a unique kind of satisfaction that comes with watching someone's words, once aimed at your defeat, come back to haunt them. The irony is so sweet, it's almost poetic. They threw their doubts, their insults, and their criticisms at you like stones, expecting you to crumble beneath the weight. But instead of breaking you, those stones became the foundation of your success. And now, they're choking on the very words they once used to try to erase you. It's a delicate kind of karma when their voices, full of disdain and dismissal, turn into the very sound of their downfall. They mocked you, ridiculed you, told you that you couldn't, that you shouldn't, that you weren't enough. They pointed fingers, made predictions, and built their whole worldview on the belief that you would fall. But there's something they never saw coming. The chosen are not meant to fall. And the best part, they never saw the day when their own words would turn against them. They tried to destroy you with their opinions, assuming their voices would carry weight. But what they didn't understand was that their words were never as powerful as they thought. In truth, the more they spoke against you, the more they dug their own grave. It was their confidence in your failure that sealed their fate, not yours. They thought their negativity would break your spirit, but they didn't realize it was simply feeding the fire inside you. Every insult, every doubting glance, every time they told you you can't or you're not enough, it only made you more determined. You were building strength in silence, and while they were loud and full of themselves, you were quietly writing your own narrative. Now, as you rise, as you thrive in ways they never imagined, their own words are working against them. The words they used to label you, to define your limitations, are now the very chains that bind them to their own regrets. Every time they see your success, every time they witness your growth, they are forced to confront their own words they can no longer take back. It's a bitter pill to swallow for them. The same ones who told you, "You'll never make it," now must look at you and admit, whether they say it or not, that they were wrong. Every victory you claim, every door you open, every opportunity that lands in your lap serves as a reminder to them of just how wrong they were. And while they're left drowning in their own pride, trying to convince themselves that they didn't really mean it, they can't escape the reality. Their words are now their punishment. The irony here is rich, isn't it? Because they thought their doubts would bury you. They thought their laughter at your ambition would silence your dreams. But instead, those words became the weight that dragged them down. Their ridicule didn't make you small, it made you rise. And now, Every time they see you achieving something great, they can't help but hear the echo of their own voices, the ones that told you to give up. But it's too late to take it back now. They can't erase what's been said, and they can't ignore the fact that their predictions were wrong. And you know what? They can't even admit it to themselves. They might try to rewrite history, pretend they always believed in you, and act as if they never doubted you. But deep down, they know the truth. Their arrogance, their smug confidence that you would fail, has become their own silent burden. And it doesn't matter how many times they try to take it back. It's already out there. Their words have already been cast into the world, and they can't control how people remember them. The very words they used to try to diminish you are now etched in the minds of those who were watching. And those words, those harsh judgments, are now part of the legacy they can't escape. They thought they could write your story, predict your downfall, and use their doubt as a weapon against you. But the truth is, they never had the power to write your narrative. They only had the illusion of control. They thought they knew your limits, but all they were doing was limiting themselves. They thought they were standing on higher ground, when, in reality, they were simply digging a hole beneath their own feet. The sweetest irony of all is how, in their attempts to tear you down, they only built you up. Every insult, every sneer, every word they threw at you became the fuel for your fire. They thought they could extinguish your passion by telling you it was impossible, that you were too small, too weak, too foolish. But all they did was fan the flames, stoke the embers of your desire, and push you further toward greatness. And now, when they see you standing tall, when they see you succeeding, they have no choice but to face the consequences of their own words. The worst part for them is that they can't even take credit for your success. They tried to claim that you were destined to fail, but in doing so, they paved the way for your triumph. They built the cage, but they never realized they were locking themselves in it. They thought they were building your tombstone, but they were merely marking the spot where their own words would come to haunt them. They thought they were building walls to trap you, but they were only creating boundaries that you would eventually shatter. And now, they are left with nothing but the wreckage of their own arrogance. They can't escape the truth. They can't rewrite history. And as much as they try to suppress it, the truth is out there, growing stronger every day. Your success is the answer they never wanted to hear. It's the proof they can't deny. And every time they see you, every time they hear your name, it's a reminder of their mistake. A reminder that they were wrong. A reminder that their words, their doubt, their arrogance were never as powerful as they thought. You didn't have to fight back. You didn't have to waste energy proving them wrong. Your silence, your progress, your relentless pursuit of greatness was the response they couldn't handle. Your actions spoke louder than anything they could ever say. And now, they're left with nothing but the bitter taste of their own words, turned against them. The sweetest irony of all is this. They thought they were powerful enough to destroy you, but in the end, it was their own words that destroyed them. You were never meant to be their enemy. You were meant to be their lesson. And now, they are forced to live with the truth of what they said, and more importantly, the truth of what they failed to see in you. The words they once used to define your limits have become the very chains that bind them to their regret. And there's nothing they can do to take them back. In the end, the only thing that remains is the undeniable truth. Their doubt couldn't define you. Their fear couldn't stop you. And their words? They only paved the way for your victory. Now, let them sit in the silence of their own mistakes. Let them live with the knowledge that their words, once so loud, so certain, are nothing but echoes of their failure. Number 11. They tried to dim your light. Now they're blinded by it. The brightest flames make the darkest shadows. They thought they could control your shine, didn't they? With every step you took toward your dreams, they tried to hold you back, convinced that if they could just put out your spark, their own light would shine brighter. They threw their doubts, their criticisms, their judgments, all trying to weigh you down, to convince you to shrink, to hide. They thought they could make you small. They thought that by keeping you in the shadows, their egos would stay intact. But what they failed to understand was this: you were never meant to stay hidden. You were never meant to be silenced or minimized. You were meant to burn. You were meant to be a force of nature that couldn't be contained, a light that couldn't be extinguished, no matter how hard they tried. The harder they pushed you down, the higher you would rise. The more they tried to dim you, the more your light would refuse to go out. And now they are blinded by your radiance. The very light they thought they could extinguish has become their torment. Every step you take toward your purpose, every goal you achieve, every time you show up unapologetically as your true self, it illuminates the very truth they've been running from. They tried to dim your light, but in doing so, they only made it burn brighter. And now, they are forced to witness it, unable to turn away from the fire they tried so desperately to put out. At first, they thought it was just a flicker, a passing moment, something they could snuff out with a well-placed insult or a harsh word. But they underestimated the power of your flame. What they didn't realize is that your light didn't need their approval to grow. You didn't need their validation to shine. You just needed to keep going. And that's exactly what you did. With every moment they tried to diminish you, your light only grew stronger. They thought they could make you doubt yourself, that they could plant seeds of insecurity, and that you'd shrink into the background. But instead, their attempts only fueled your fire. They fed your ambition. They gave you the strength to prove them wrong and the courage to continue walking your path, regardless of their noise. And now, as you stand tall in the brilliance of your success, they can't ignore it. They can't turn away from it. They can't pretend it's not there. The light they thought they could block out is shining through every door you open, every success you claim, every milestone you reach. And it's not just them who sees it. It's everyone. People who once doubted, people who once whispered behind your back, are now forced to face the truth. You were always meant to shine. But here's the most beautiful part of it all. They can't look away. They can't stop watching as you blaze through the world. And they are left standing in the shadows they tried to create, watching you illuminate the path they thought you could never walk. Every time they see you rise, every time they hear about your success, every time they feel the heat of your determination, they are reminded of their own failure to understand the power of your light. The worst part? They thought that by dimming you, they would be the ones who shone. But instead, they're the ones who are left in the dark. They thought their jealousy, their doubt, their cruelty would extinguish your flame, but it only made you burn brighter. They thought they could outshine you by making you feel small, but all they did was create a shadow they could never escape. So let them stand in the dark. Let them wrestle with their own insecurities. Let them feel the sting of their own actions, because while they're still trying to figure out how to put out your fire, you're busy lighting up the world, and they will never be able to outrun the brilliance of your light. You didn't need to beg for validation. You didn't need to shrink yourself to fit their expectations. You just needed to stay true to yourself, to trust your own journey, and to keep walking forward. And now, as they stand there in awe, trying to shield their eyes from the glow of your success, they know, deep down, that they never had the power to dim you. They only made the flame stronger. So keep shining, keep rising, and keep proving that no matter how hard they tried to dim your light, it was never meant to be contained. And while they are left blinded by your brilliance, you'll continue to light the way for those who are ready to follow. As we wrap up, remember this: the greatest victories come not from proving others wrong, but from simply showing up, rising, and becoming the force they never saw coming. Your silence, your actions, and your relentless drive have already spoken volumes. Now it's their turn to listen, and they can't escape the truth. If this message resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more empowering content, and drop the number 77 in the comments to let the world know you're unstoppable. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because together we rise.